Hi everyone. Yes, it is less than a week before Rosh Hashanah, and here I am, instead of writing my high holiday sermons, recording a video in my backyard. And that's because I was reflecting, sitting, having a little bit of a meditation in an effort to try to get some inspiration for what I was going to write next. And I just had something come up that I really felt like I needed to share. Um, I'm so frustrated with trying to communicate religion or spirituality in rational terms. Um, Theology should be poetry. Theology should be poetry. I think we've sacrificed the mythic in Judaism, maybe in other spiritual traditions too, at the altar of rationality and modernity, that we've tried to appeal to generations of people, starting in the 19th throughout the 20th centuries, by pulling our practices out at the roots. And we do this by highlighting the positive effects of engaging in a Shabbat practice for the individual, or maybe coming up with rational reasons for things like keeping kosher. It's a very popular thing in the 19th century and maybe into the 20th century to argue that some of the reasons for the laws of kashrut, the Jewish dietary laws, were really about keeping people healthy, and that we no longer maybe need them in the modern world with more sanitary practices. And so in a time when the world was obsessed with the ideas of progress, with efficiency, logic, that was kind of an understandable response from spiritual leaders, right? All of the modern movements in Judaism have done this to some degree. And I even did it to myself. I think that's why we're potentially losing people, why people aren't connecting with traditional institutional Jewish communities in the same way that we might hearken back to some mythical time in the middle of the 20th century when synagogue membership was booming. I really felt drawn to Judaism, or felt welcomed in to having a conversation with spiritual tradition, because of some of these, rational ways of presenting things, right? That there was not as much of an emphasis on having a specific belief in God. And that was what really allowed me to have a way in to exploring Jewish practice. I felt free to explore, to ask questions, without having this worry of, saying something sacrilegious that would get you kicked out. But now, after many years of being immersed in the Jewish community and of being in a role of spiritual leadership myself, I'm realizing that we have actually lost something really important by engaging in this more rational, heavy approach. It's sort of a cliche in some parts of the Jewish community to say that we don't talk about God all that much. Sure, God is addressed in prayer. God features prominently in the Torah and the Hebrew Bible. But I find myself talking so much in abstraction, or as if God is just another character in the story. And I have to ask myself, why? Is it out of fear? Fear that I'll totally alienate people, put people off, seem to woo-woo? But it kind of clicked for me recently. We really have to ask ourselves the question, like, as clergy people, as spiritual leaders, as those who consider ourselves committed to spiritual practice, do we actually believe in what we're saying? Do we believe in prayer? How much do those of us who are Jewish spiritual leaders and teachers really stop and think about that question? Right? What do we think we're doing when we pray? And this is the question that was really the trickier one for me, which is, do we believe God, or the divine presence, communicates with us? And are we comfortable talking about that? What would it be like in our communities to talk about that? To share our personal experiences of encounter with the divine? And if we don't do that, why? I know for me, I feel deeply uncomfortable with that. It's very unsettling. And I'm not sure why that is. But I think we really do need to reconnect with the mythical, mystical, and magical that is present in our tradition. A lot of people, particularly young people, are hungry for a sense of connection to their communities, to the physical world, and to the more than physical world. And they're seeking out meaning and connection in all kinds of places. Yoga studios, soul cycle, alternative religious or spiritual practices, meditation. All of these are ways that I think people are expressing that desire to experience something more. And Jewish communities can be one of those places if we can offer the spiritual nourishment that so many people are seeking. So I'm really tired of treating Judaism, which is a religion, in addition to being a peoplehood and a culture, and yes, civilization, I know, Mordecai Kaplan. But we can't treat our spiritual practice as if it should operate purely in the rational realm. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the intellectual rigor of Torah study. I did my master's in Talmud and rabbinics when I was in rabbinical school. And I love that there's that pathway that's open to people who are going to most easily connect and engage with the Jewish tradition in that way. But there's also so much more to experience. And I want to be able to speak to the full truth of my experience, and that includes the sublime. And I want to create space for other people to be able to name those experiences too. So I'll wish you and anyone who's listening a Shana Tova. That's a wonderful new year ahead as we're heading into Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. And if you have any thoughts or questions about this, leave some in the comments. I'm hoping to post more videos, but this just kind of came up unprompted, and I wanted to be able to share what was on my mind with you this afternoon.